I look back in this back and me, seed into the seed on this earth, with this curse. And it sells and it helps. Recently, all peacefully. But at least have the decency, can't you leave me alone when you freaks see me out in the streets when I'm eating or feeding my daughter did not come to speak to me. Oh no, you know I don't owe you a motherfucking. I'm not Mr. NSYNC, I'm not what your friends think. I'm not Mr. Envy, I can't be a prick. He's on empty. And the air, I don't care who was there. Saw you, call you a lawyer, buy you a lawsuit. I smile in the court, buy you. I'm tired of all you. Damn, man, that shit takes me back to high school.
That's that old school right there.
Actually, I was in middle school. No, I was in high school. How would I say I am? In the paper, the news every day I am.
He is the king.
Radio won't even play I jam. Yeah, Eminem is fucking great.
Dude.
I saw the way that he comes up with lyrics. He's a genius. I think he was, he's born with that gene for words. So he was on his tour bus, right? And he was being interviewed, and he had a piece of paper. Actually, he had a little notebook. And he was saying, he'll look out the window and he'll just start looking at stuff. He'll start rhyming things he sees, and just, it's a process. He'll start writing them, and then he'll create sounds with the word so that it connects with the next word and flow in a certain way.
Okay.
By matching the syllable sound with the next one so that it has a flow. The guy's freaking genius.
I think so.
That, you have to have a gene for that.
Yeah, because it's like you're not just playing this. It's not just the beat, right? And then you got to have the glossary in your mind to be able to tie in the words with that beat. And,
because literally
tell a story.
You need to have a deep knowledge of vocabulary to come up with all these words while you're seeing things and then able to connect them all together. So not a lot of people have a library of words in their brain to connect all these words together and things that actually make sense.
Yeah.
So I think that he just has that IQ that's more focused on verbal ability. Same thing with Busta Rhymes, right? Busta Rhymes, apparently when he was in high school, he went to the same high school as Jay-Z, and Busta Rhymes said that I guess he was trying to be the fastest rapper. Something happened, I don't know. I guess he wanted for somehow become fast, and he just started to practice and connect these words fast, and he was the fastest rapper in Brooklyn at the time. Yeah, you know how Busta's really fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My boy Mike Flows is like that. Shout out Mike Flows. Shout out Chill Shump on the beat up here in CT. Mike, he's a local rapper up here, well known, but he's able to actually articulate the words very quickly like that Busta kind of rap. And I've never heard an artist like that. You don't really hear a lot of that because nowadays it's the mumble rap, right? It's that whole different vibe.
Yeah.
But I like that old school, like that 90s era, Busta,
I think
Jay-Z.
that can come back. You know what? It's funny because, right, we look at hip-hop, and hip-hop has been out since the late 70s, so it's been over 40 years, right? But when you look at music, it has cycles. You know how we talk about politics and like countries and everything, they have cycles of repetitiveness?
Yep.
Same thing with clothes style, fashion style. Music comes back. Like in the 2010s, those teen years, we had a lot of 80s sounding music come around.
Yep.
I think with rap, I think it's going to start to get to that point where hip-hop starts to go back to sounds of previous generations. So I'm thinking, we might have that style coming back somehow. Maybe we have, a 90s gangster rap style coming back, circulating.
Yep.
I think that's something we haven't seen yet, and I think we might be able to go back to that. And it will be interesting if that does happen because we still have these rappers that are still around from those generations, so they could have a comeback.
Yep.
Like, think of it. Like, let's say like gangster rap, like West Coast style gangster rap comes back.
Yep.
Style comes back again.
Mm-hmm.
We have Snoop Dogg. He's still around. Dr. Dre's still around.
Yep.
We have Ice Cube, Ice-T. You have all these rappers still alive, and they still look young for their age. They could come back.
Still killing it. They're still killing it. Still killing it.
Right.
They love shitting all over the younger ones too. That Eminem, Machine Gun Kelly, back and forth. The rap battles and stuff. And I think so, man, because we're going through that whole other era now where all these stories are being created right now. Like, all the struggles are happening right now. And out of these periods, I feel like you see a form of artistry, like whether it's written art or it's verbal art. And the thing I love about the rap industry is, like, it's poetry. A lot of it, if it's, different than, again, the mumble stuff like we've been seeing nowadays, but a lot of that 90s era, a lot of that from the, late 80s into the early 2000s was all storytelling, all the struggles through, that period. And I feel like we're definitely going to see that again coming out of this for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, man.
This is great. This is throw in before we change the subject, but on Netflix, this is awesome, like, miniseries documentary.
Okay.
Of hip hop, the story of hip hop. I forgot the name of the title. Hip hop something. Evolution of Hip Hop. That's the name of it. Bro, it breaks down the different regions of the United States with the different types of rappers that brought up their regions, right? So you have like New York, Atlanta, Virginia, California, and you have all those regions, and then you have the different types of raps and rap styles.
Okay.
And so there's like 2 or 3 seasons of it. Man, you gotta watch that. If you guys are into hip hop, really into it, that's a great documentary to watch. It's great. It's amazing.
It's good, dude. So. It's a lot to see. And with the crypto space, artists now, musicians are really having a new outlet of ways to distribute their content, ways to control their content, and ways to make money from their content without a third party like a label in the past, because the labels historically have taken away like the the ability for artists to have their own creativity, like to control what they could create, and then the finances. I mean, they like really do kind of enslave these artists, where they get signed into a deal for whatever $500,000 or $1 million that the label loans to them essentially, and then they have to end up paying it back through royalties or whatever income is generated from the content that they create. So we could definitely stay on top of that topic, because these NFTs now, you're seeing the NFTs in the crypto space, that's becoming big, bro. Like they're doing like $1 million sellouts in a drop in a day kind of thing. So it's huge.
So that's another thing, right? The NFT. So let's say you are a rapper and you create a song and you throw it behind an NFT.
Mm-hmm.
That could be the future of a lot of this type of thing that's going on, right?
Yeah,
and you
I think so.
TikTok. That's another vehicle. I see a lot of people that are coming out as musicians, rappers, and all that through TikTok. And then you got the big labels reaching out to these artists. But then if these artists learn that they have this new type of vehicle called NFT, which I don't think a lot of people actually know what the hell it is. Maybe that's something we should talk a little bit more about, because that's literally the next assets vehicle that would probably drive forward in the next 10 years.
Yeah, I'll pull up the Nifty Gateway too while we're talking about it. So, and this is actually good, because what we'll do is we'll talk about NFTs, and then we can go straight into looking at the Bitcoin and Monero charts, the first of the episodes. But NFTs are a new thing. So anyone, as I'm pulling up the website here in the background, I'll talk about them. But anyone watching that hasn't heard of NFTs yet, in crypto, what they are is, NFT stands for a non-fungible token. So cryptocurrencies, again, are they're like Bitcoin, for example, right? Bitcoin there's 21 million Bitcoin. It's a digital representation of a unit of currency, a unit of money and value, right? But there's nothing else you can do with the Bitcoin code other than account balances. So I have 500 Bitcoin, he has 200 Bitcoin, he has 1 Bitcoin's worth a lot. We all wish we had that much now. But these non-fungible tokens, what happened is, as time went on from 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, as the blockchain developers were coming in, there was new use cases that they were able to make off them. What they figured out that they could do is that you could create a token, a digital representation of any form of data. So it could be a song, it could be an image, it could be anything that you can put data into this digital currency, and you can make it unique to any other one that exists online. So right now, digital artwork and songs are becoming very popular to put on NFTs because you could have a piece of digital artwork that is in fact one of one, and it is the only original because it's on a token on the blockchain, and you can see that there's no fakes. Like Joe can't say he has that digital art because it's under Mike's wallet account, so that's a fake kind of thing. And they're doing it now with songs and all this other stuff. But I'm going to pull up the Nifty Gateway.
Now, what type of blockchain system is actually predominant within these non-fungible tokens?
Ethereum right now. So
Ethereum is like the one.
It's the main.
It's the one and only right now.
No, it's not the one. There's others,
Monero
but it's like
also, right?
So Monero has WowNero, which we've talked about, right? Let me pull up so we got our we are up there. I couldn't see us. All right, there we go. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so we've talked about Monero, right? So Monero has WowNero, which we've talked about for being able to mint memes, right? So that's coming up here. But Ethereum is it's way more developed than Monero. The problem with Monero right now is that it first was launched in 2014. In the last bull run, it still wasn't being adopted much yet. It was there, it was popular, but it was still difficult to use. Even the wallet integration was hard to use. Now, finally, in the last year or so, it's got a ton of developers. Actually, I think it has the second most developers than Bitcoin, the second or third most developers supporting it. Its adoption's getting better. There's new wallets that have been created to make it easier to use. And we're starting to build on top of Monero like Ethereum did earlier on. Because I don't know if you remember with Ethereum in the last bull market in 2017. You remember the Cryptokitty craze? Cryptokitties, you remember hearing that at all? They were those the non-fungible token kitties. People were able to design cats, these digital cats, and they put them on an NFT that was on the Ethereum blockchain, and they were selling them for like $500,000 a kitty. And what happened is so many people were selling them. In order to transfer them back and forth between owners, you have to send them on the blockchain. It was bogging down Ethereum. So Ethereum, for one point, was super expensive to use, and it was really delayed and stuff. So I think we're probably with these new NFTs for this cycle, there's some people, including myself, I'm sure like anything, there'll be a bubble. Like someone will realize they paid $1 million for something that may not be worth $1 million kind of thing. But this is an example of a website that you can go to look at what NFTs are for sale. It's Nifty Gateway. And actually, this is owned by Gemini, the company, as I just found out on the phone, y'all, that I'll be working for, which is dope. But so these drops are when they drop a piece of, when they drop a new NFT. So right now what they're doing is they're getting all these different artists and content and creators, so artists, musicians, to come onto the platform to start creating NFTs, and they're scheduling drop dates. So like Monday at 7 p.m. is going to be these guys, and then you can come here and you'll see all their shit. These are example, but let's look at the marketplace real quick. I guess housekeeping, if anyone's listening to this, I know we got a few viewers again. We're across 3 different platforms right now. Leave a comment if you got a question. This is an open forum chat. We'll be on here for the next, however much time we need. We put the links in the description, so if you want to subscribe to our email list, go ahead and click the email subscription link, put in your email, and you'll make sure you get all of our updates here. But here we go. So these are some of these NFTs are just images, some of them are videos and songs. It just depends, and then you can see the price here. Like this one, the Bitcoin Angel, it's $8,800. This is the NFT. So this is the piece of artwork. This is the contract address. So this is the actual address on the blockchain. So you know where to. It's because they're bidding right now. So you see, so you can bid, or you can pay for it. That's the token ID. This is the name, who created it, or who owns it right now, right? So Constantine is the owner. And then there's a little description. So it's one of one, right? So there's only one of them. Here's the artist. This is the last it sold for, was $777, and the person's trying to resell it for eight almost $9,000. So like it's fucking crazy. It's crazy, but like but they're new, dude. I mean, these things are, here you go, and here's stats. So here's some stats. Average resale price change from the market open. So what you can do is you come over here to stats too, and you can actually look at what NFTs are growing in value versus other ones, and then you can start buying and selling them based off of like any type of collectible. So I'm gonna buy this one NFT and hold it for a few days and try to resell it. Like, look, you see here, the last stand of the nation state. There's 415 of them that exist. They're all sold out though. The average resale price is $2,500. The original price was $40 for this. The original price was $40. Now it's selling for $2,500, and that's how much it's appreciated. It's over 6,100%. There's been 717 total sales, so it's moved back and forth 717 times. And this is the last it sold for was $17,000, the last sale. So someone was able to make a pretty good amount of money on that. But you scroll down and you can see all of them. So like, okay, so this is another one. So
now the question would be, right, I guess from people that don't have a lot of knowledge behind any of this, why would this become a thing? Aside from obvious reasons that it's limited digitally, right? And all of that. But how would you explain to a person that has very little knowledge of any of this in the real world? Well, in the physical world. This is still real world, right? Because right now it's hard to explain people the significance of cryptocurrency. Now try to explain that with NFTs just like this. Now I think people's brain would explode. Yeah.
So the thing with crypto in general is it's hard for people to understand value because it's not tangible, right? There's nothing physical behind it, and that's one of the hardest things I've come across with people talking about money. Is like the gold bugs too. Gold bugs don't like Bitcoin. Some of them because I can't hold it, therefore it doesn't exist. But if you look at everything that the internet's done, what has the internet done? The internet has dematerialized everything. It's dematerializing everything. So
it's broken down everything material into zeros and ones in a virtual world.
Exactly.
And
So
I think people don't understand that the future will be a virtual world, or we will have two parallel realities. We will have a physical reality and a virtual reality. We will have two lives. We will have a house that we live in at home, and then the physical, we will have a virtual home that we will interact with others. I think people don't understand that yet.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mike. And if you look at the other aspect is the generational part of it. So you have the technological part, which is the internet, which is dematerializing and breaking up different segments of industries. But then you also have a new generation of not so much millennials, but like Gen Z, which are they value digital items, digital goods. The average Gen Z is more interested in his skin for his video game, the skin on the player, than he is for a physical real world item. Like I even think
like a wardrobe. You got your household, you got your outfits at home that you could spend, maybe $200-300 on an outfit, or I could spend $100 or $200-300 on a couple outfits on, Grand Theft Auto.
Exactly. And they even prefer the digital Lambo versus the real life Lambo, depending on what it is or what game it's in. So you have all this. You have all like it's like this perfect storm of technology meets the generational side, and then from there it's all in psychology. What does the person perceive to have value at the end of the day? And I think that's the merging of those three is bringing value out. And the fact that with these digital items you can add scarcity behind them. True scarcity means that you can actually add true ownership, and and that's what this is all about here, is that if there's value behind a digital item and then you can make it scarce, then it makes it more valuable. So with these artworks, like for example, like the digital art, I've seen pictures of like people that have new, like you would ask like, how do you even display that, right? What do you have it on a computer screen? I've seen people that have like the digital like picture frames, and they're starting to use that a lot. So like,
yeah, and I'm sure you could have a printout too that could come with it.
Yeah.
And you can have a physical one, but you'll have your digital one, which is one of one or one of 100. And I think that's good, is a good segue into what Facebook is doing with Oculus and their Libra coin and their virtual world that they're trying to create, right? They're trying to create real estate on this VR system. They're trying to create. So think about this, right? So if Facebook is actually creating a whole virtual world where you could actually live on virtually with your Oculus, and you could socialize with others on their Oculuses as well, and you could have a home just like in The Sims, and you have, you could interact with others.
Yep.
They could see the things that you actually have in that home that you bought and built within that virtual world.
Yep.
This sounds crazy to a baby boomer or a person from the silent generation.
Yeah.
You explain this to them and they think this is the most retarded thing that you could talk about. But this is a thing. This is a real thing, and a Gen Zer and a millennial easily sees this as a thing, and it's the future. And it's happening right now.
Yeah.
And I think the COVID-19 situation accelerated that, because throughout this whole year, the past year, we couldn't really go anywhere, so VR became a thing more than it usually was.
Yeah.
Right? Oculus costs $400 a pop, which isn't really much if you really think about the technology behind it.
Yep.
You throw that shit on, now you have an avatar and you could actually join in with others, and you have all these things going on. And it's funny because I watch these videos on TikTok about like these avatars on the Oculus, and it's hilarious, these TikTok videos they come up with. But they have a whole thing going. They have their own inside jokes, their own type of world, and everything. And that's a thing, bro. Like, I think people are not getting it, that we are literally in a shift. 21st century is more than what we see right now. There's more to it. And I think we are like fast, like paced into that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
agree with you. And actually, for today's title of today's episode too, I know we're doing a little free form here, but the title is how technology is used to control you. And a part of that is the fact that, like you talked about, is that there's this epoch that's happening right now. We've talked about this before, and this shift of human consciousness into the internet, and this merging of physical world, digital world, and this is what it's all about. So the virtual reality communities that exist, digital communities, like dematerializing things that are physical and things that are more online. And these are some aspects that we're going to dig into more, I think, over the conversation today, because it is happening. It's happening faster than people really think. It's going to start with digital currencies. It's going to move into digital collectibles, and then once, like we talked about in the 2 episodes ago, once we get to the point with like the Neuralink with Elon Musk, and the mind is actually connected to the internet. That's when we're talking real acceleration on this virtual world. So this is a real cool way. So, if you're in crypto, you're looking for a new aspect of crypto to maybe make some money and stuff, these NFTs have been hot. And I think that as long as this bull market's going in crypto, which it will for this year, at least this year, it's looking like, these things I think they're going to keep popping. Like, look at this one. That went up 3,900%. This was 50 cents.
Yeah, or if you're an artist, this is probably a good route to take.
This is a big
really
deal.
Money.
Yes,
think of it, bro. Artistry, that's something that hasn't paid well, because artists in America don't have that. They don't have that. I don't know, that platform like other industries have to actually get going because there's a lot of competitiveness, and then you got bigger players, outshining the smaller ones.
Yep.
And if you can't get into like a Art Basel, then good luck. Now with this is a huge possibility that
Yeah.
if you could create beautiful portraits on this, tokenize it, you could become wealthy like that.
Yeah. So it's big. So Nifty Gateway's one. It's one of the main ones. Check them out. This leads into another good example. Let's go. Let's look at the charts. Let's get to the charts. Do a little bit about this. All right. So quick Bitcoin update. Now we'll start with Monero actually. So we won't spend too much time on this, but Monero still pulling back. It had a high of $283 on. This was February 20th, and we've had a pullback since then. We've also had a pullback in Bitcoin. I'll go to the price chart in a minute. So if Bitcoin's pulling back, typically what you'll see is, it'll bring the market down with it. So I think that this is what it's all about. Monero is also down in Bitcoin terms right now. Still really early on in the market. A lot of the guys that I follow, this is an accumulation period. And again, it's important to understand Monero's still very early in its adoption and technology. The use cases there. We talked in the past about the amount of transactions being used on the Monero blockchain are increasing month over month. We didn't want to talk too much about this in the past, but the darknet marketplaces now are only using Monero. They're not using Bitcoin anymore. So just like we saw Bitcoin only being used in darknet marketplaces and things like that first, and then Bitcoin was adopted, Monero's taking that seat. So I expect going forward, especially in a world of surveillance, financial surveillance, and surveillance capitalism, you're going to have people that are going to want to hide wealth versus maybe having it publicly known. So we always support it on top of Bitcoin as well for the two portfolio there. Mike,
Yeah, and I think
anything on?
people need to understand that what's going on with the crypto markets right now is that there's a lot of hearsay, she says type of thing. You have powerful influencers like people in Washington, people in Wall Street, CNBC, these so-called financial gurus, which are so-called because they're not. They're these are dinosaurs that are talking around, right? I like Peter Schiff because of some of his. I like his philosophy a little bit about libertarianism and all that and gold, but he's not adopting the whole concept of what Bitcoin is, and he talks all of this jazz about the economy coming to a collapse and all of that, and he thinks that gold is the only savior. I'm sorry, but gold isn't the only savior, and I'm not just trying to say that because of crypto, but you have other metals, you have other assets that could also be a savior. It's not just gold. I think there's something that we all learn is don't put all your eggs in one basket. So like we talk about here, get a little gold, get a little silver, platinum, get a little Bitcoin, Monero, properties. If you have enough money to spread around, then spread it around. Don't keep it all in cash. Don't throw it all in a CD. Don't throw it all in a money market. Don't leave it all in a 401k. Don't leave it all in a savings account, because we have something called inflation. We have something called the market, and the market crashes every 10 years and I think it's about that time that something's going to happen. And I think we all have to just be realistic. It's not about being a pessimist. It's about being an optimist. The optimist is that for us to continue going forward in an economy that is strong, we need to actually be real. The economy is overinflated. All right. So if you have an overinflated economy, then you can't understand what's really going on. If you don't understand what's really going on, that means that you can't actually do what's right in this economy. We need to know what the economy needs to keep going forward and progress as a nation, as a society, as a world. Once that bubble pops and we see the reality of what's really going on, then we could go and fix it and then keep moving forward. But we can't move forward with the false reality of what is being placed in front of us. A fake market, highly inflated, right, with a false dollar that's highly deflated.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of shit that's going on that we just don't understand because it's a lie. So we're walking through a tunnel full of fog. We need that to clear up so that we can continue going forward with minimal risk.
Yeah, and I've got a tweet that I'm going to pull up next that we'll get into from Michael Burry. That Michael Burry is the famous investor from The Big Short. So if you've ever seen the movie The Big Short, he was that investor, and he had a couple tweet storms this past week, putting out his signals again, just like he did before the 07, 08 housing crisis, saying, inflation's coming. He gave his data to explain why. So these alternatives are going to be more important than ever in 2021. The question is whether or not the dollar makes it through its 50th birthday this year. October of this year will be 50 years for the U.S. dollar, and the way it's looking right now is not very good as far as inflation and wealth preservation of the dollar. And a lot of what, like we're going to get into later on, a lot of what we're seeing right now in society, in the news networks, is all to confuse people and to not really let them know what's really going on, which we've been talking about on this show for over a year now, has been the greater macroeconomic situation. Changing world powers, a changing reserve currency, changing economies. And the confusion, you keep society confused, you keep the people confused during all that while it happens, while that transition happens in the background. But what happens to the average person? They get washed out, they get completely wrecked because they didn't have foresight into what's going on with the currency, what's going on with the economy, and they're confused because they're watching the news networks that are feeding them misinformation, disinformation, but everything but the truth. So it's important, and the cryptos I think are going to be a big part of wealth.
It happened in Germany. It happened in Germany after the Spanish flu and the end of World War One. Did people understand that was going to happen in Germany? Did anybody had a clue that there was going to be hyperinflation in that country? No. And what happened? What happened when hyperinflation took a hold of that nation? It literally created a system that later we call now Nazism. And a bunch of shit happened. From that situation, look what happened, bro. Since 1920, 1921, you had a country that came from ruin after World War One, became a superpower, led the whole world into a war where we created a nuclear bomb. It detonated twice in Japan for us to try to finish a war with the Japanese. All of that happened and then led us into a Cold War. That's the significance of what hyperinflation could do. All right? There's a chain of events. What would happen if we have a chain of events with the one and only superpower? Because China's a superpower, but it's still not the number one superpower. America is. And if we have hyperinflation for a petrodollar, if that is to happen, the consequences for the world are dire.
Yeah.
And we do not know what would happen. I think that's what we all need to figure out. What will happen? What could occur if we have runaway inflation of the dollar? It's hard to say. Yeah,
it's you bring up a good point, Mike, because a lot of people think of it just from the money perspective. Like a lot of people they stop thinking at okay, hyperinflation happens like in pre-World War II Germany and people lost their money. But you need to take it a step further and understand what toll that has on society. It changes people psychologically. Then that's where you had the extremists and the populists, and it goes back to the Lord of the Flies book, right? And then that set up World War II. It set up Hitler, and it set up the people accepting what was going on, and it led us into a world war. So it's a lot of important stuff that's going on right now, and it's historical. It's super historical. But here we have Bitcoin priced in US dollars. So again, on a pullback, but this is a healthy correction. So if you're trading in Bitcoin or you're actively accumulating Bitcoin, you want to be buying this dip. What's happening right here is exactly what happened in the last correction. And this will continue to happen several more times as we run up to the $100,000 price tag, and then as the year goes on, probably closer to $200,000. So, the price can't just go up in a parabolic move right away. What happens is you have this slow momentum up, and then a small correction, and then it goes up again. And I'll do is,
you have to figure out in your mind, are you buying for the short term or the long term?
Right.
And I think, you and I, Joe, we look at the long term for Bitcoin because, we're talking about hyperinflation. So that's what we expect.
Yeah.
A hyperinflationary period where a cryptocurrency could be not a complete savior, but probably a complete savior. We're not sure, but we're hoping so.
All right, so this is I want to draw a comparison to the last bull market. So this is the chart now. This is this bull market, right? So it started back here. I think some people argue it started in March of 2020 was the last real dip with the COVID, and then we've been going up ever since, right? Right now you see you have this parabolic growth up. But if I come back to 2017, which was the last bull market, you'll notice here in 2017 and 18, this was the last blip. So this right here, I'm going to zoom in a moment, and we're going to take a look at what it looked like back then. But this looked like this right down here when that started.
Yeah, that was 2017, 18.
Yeah.
And when it came down, it didn't go back to where it used to be. It stood higher than what it was previously to that increase. If you see there. So it never really went lower than when it began.
Yeah. I got to learn how to use TradingView better. Anyways, you'll notice like on the run up last time, like you had correction, you had a correction, there was a correction here. If I can zoom in. So the same thing's happening now. So this is a good buying opportunity. This isn't financial advice, but it's a good buying opportunity. We'll have some consolidation, and then just like it did down here, it'll probably continue up. So again, that's a Bitcoin price, kind of there. Anything else on the price of Bitcoin, Mike? Super bullish this last week. A lot of updates this last week too. So like Square's buying more. MicroStrategy, which is the first publicly traded company to buy Bitcoin openly, they just bought $1 billion more. So companies are actively accumulating during this time.
Yeah, you're going to see people say a lot of things to try to bring the price down. So when people are trying to bring the price down, you have to see it's probably because they're trying to buy. When you have these market players say, hey, I think Bitcoin's a little inflated. I think Elon Musk says something close to that in a way, right? He said something about Bitcoin, and it started to bring the price down. Things like that I think happen for a reason, and it's probably to bring the price down and shake off, the low-hanging fruit and bring the price down so you could come and buy more. So people have to be aware that's going to happen. And I think it's good that it does happen because then, you could buy more at a lower price and then keep holding.
And if you just if you just set up like those automatic buys, they call it dollar cost averaging. It's the best way to do it because you go on Cash App, you set up a reoccurring buy every 2 weeks, and you set it and forget it. And what it's going to do is it's going to buy. You're just always going to be buying at these prices. So yeah, you might be buying on the way up, but you'll also be automatically buying on the way down. And what you're doing is you're lowering your average price that you paid for Bitcoin. So that's a good strategy going through these markets, I think.
Yeah, I wouldn't buy on Cash App though. Better go to Coinbase, right? Because that's more yours than you don't have a digital wallet with Cash App.
Yeah. No, I agree with you though. Coinbase is just good. Cash App is good if you want to buy quick, but if you want to trust someone to actually custody it for you, which we definitely believe that you should use hardware wallets. But if you're going to leave it with someone, Coinbase is probably it. They're about to IPO. Yeah, they're about to IPO too.
Oh, yeah, Coinbase that's going to be
at a big valuation, bro. $70 billion plus valuation. They're going to hit $100 billion, I think, within. Yeah, for a crypto company. So.
Yeah.
So we'll see more coming in.
I don't like Cash App because I don't like Jack Dorsey, so I'm just letting people know.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to the Twitter page here. Let's talk Michael Burry real quick. Let's get into a little bit of inflation, and so
then he did mention a little bit about Bitcoin, which is curious in my mind what he thinks about it, and I think maybe he's thinking about it in terms of government being a regulator that might scare people in the world of the cryptocurrency.
Yep. I gotta find his Twitter actually.
It's called what?
It's like
Aphrodite or something like that. It's called.
It's some girl's name, I think.
It's Yeah, it's supposed to be one of the goddesses or something.
Here. I'll click on the article and I'll find it. I'll find it from here. It's worth going to his page. Tweeted the following. All right, here we go. Oh, what you mean the tweet's unavailable?
Oh, you erased it? Cassandra, I think that's the name.
Yeah, that's the name. All right.
Cassandra, yeah.
All right.
Because it's named after Cassandra, which always said that something was gonna happen. Nobody listened until it happened.
Am I spelling this right?
Cassandra.
There he is.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Free psyops. I like that.
free psyops. This guy's hilarious.
Yeah, so here's some tweets. Bitcoin is a speculative bubble that poses more risks than opportunities, despite most of the proponents being correct in their arguments for why it is relevant at this point in history. If you do not know how much leverage is involved in the run-up, you may not know enough to own it. So leverage is involved in the run-up, which is true. It is highly leveraged. The futures markets, just like any other industry, like the precious metals industry, we see like the futures markets really suppresses the price because people can leverage long, and then if they sell, right, or they, then it's there. But I think his point is more the government side, which we can find here, because he talks about control, which, Mike, you've definitely talked about in the past. But yeah. Let's start first on the inflation tweets, because it was really good. Did he remove them? My computer's just so slow right now. I wonder if he removed them. That's interesting. All right, well, I mean, the audience is going to be like, well, Joe and Mike, the fuck you talking about? But I'm going to tell you right now that there were some tweets.
We'll go to the tweets, not tweets and replies. Just go to tweets, see what it says.
The Zero Hedge article had it in there no matter what. 4 hours ago. 5 hours ago.
Yeah, that was 2 days ago. So maybe scroll 2 days ago.
No.
I think it was 2 to 3 days.
Yeah, but this is 6 hours.
On Monday.
Yeah, so I don't see it. All right, we're gonna go to the Zero Hedge article, because the Zero Hedge article had all of his tweets in there. All right, so what we're gonna talk about now is inflation, and the kind of cool thing is that what Michael Burry brings to what he talks about in this article is exactly what we were talking about on the last episode, talking about the velocity chart and then also the inflation chart, or the money supply chart. But first, let's listen into what Burry had to say here. So, okay, so what he's saying is that a week ago, Bank of America hinted that a tsunami of money and stimulus was coming in, and at the same time as a surge in velocity as the world's economy emerges from lockdowns. So as the world emerges from the lockdowns, everyone's expecting that people are going to start going out more. They're going to start spending more again at restaurants or flights or whatever. And that velocity of money, or the amount of money that's moving between hands, will start to increase. But it's happening at the same time as a lot of money is being created. And Mike, what we talked about on the last episode was exactly that. So this is the velocity of money chart, And you can see right now it's really low. So this means that there's no money being exchanged back and forth right now. But at the same time, this is the money supply chart, or the amount of money that's created. It's at an all-time high. So this is what Burry's alluding to. And what he's saying is that so the CIO, Chief Investment Officer of Bank of America, reflected back to post-World War I Germany, which he said was the most epic, extreme analog of surging velocity and inflation following end-of-war psychology, pent-up savings, lost confidence in currency and authorities. Okay, so what they're essentially saying is that in Germany, in 1914, right, the war kicked off was in 1913, 1914, World War I. Germany was really the leader of that war. The velocity of money was going down year over year throughout World War I. So as World War I went on, less people were spending less money in Germany. But the inflation, or the amount of money being created in Germany during World War I, was going up at the same time, year over year. 1918, the war ends. And then, right, so after a world war ends, society starts to come out of the rubbles, right? They start to come out of the rubbles, and then they start to spend a little bit more than they had in the past because they had pent-up savings, their war efforts were going on, no one was spending. And if you look at the velocity of money in Germany in 1918, 1919, it started going from negative to positive. So that means that people were spending money again. And every year from 1918, the velocity went up, so that means more people were spending money. 1920, more people were spending money. 1921, more people were spending money. And you notice it's going up right here. 1922, it went up from 119% to 3,800%. At the same time, though, if we go back, you look at the inflation or the money creation, it was still going up the entire time. So as people went from not spending money to spending money again, the inflation, the amount of money that was being created was still increasing at the same time. And you notice right when you get over here to 1922, you see that people are spending a lot of money, but a lot of money is being created. And this is when prices of goods and services go through the roof. This is when your bread is like $20 a loaf one week, and then it's $50 a loaf the next week. So what he's saying is that he thinks that as we come out of COVID, as the lockdowns start to begin to end, we're in a similar situation as post-World War I Germany, where the velocity of money has been decreasing year over year for the last 10 years. Just like Germany from 1914 to 1918. And as we come out of COVID, he's expecting that the velocity of money will increase, just like Germany did after 1918. The velocity of money increased. But the problem, just like the German issue, is that the money supply is still going up at the same time. So Burry's starting to think now that we're going to have a very similar situation to Weimar Germany, with inflation coming out of the lockdowns. Really interesting. We looked at these two charts last time. We talked a lot about them, but a few days later from our episode, Burry comes out pretty much talking about the same charts. These were also some really good lines that he was tweeting, that was tying into what's going on today. So this is a statement he had on Germany during this period. He said, "The life of the inflation in its ripening stage was a paradox which had its own unmistakable characteristics. One was the great wealth, at least for those who were favored by the boom. Many great fortunes sprang up overnight. The cities had an aimless and wanton youth." So just like with the U.S. right now, we know that the wealth gap is so bad because the Cantillon effect, like we talk about, there's a small select few that have access to all that free money that's been created since 07, 08. They've gotten fabulously rich, while the rest of society has gotten poorer and poorer. And just like today, there's a lot.
And we also have a lot of credit floating around. So you have a lot of people that have that are not wealthy, but currently are a type of rich, right?
Yep. Yep.
They could buy, they could trade and consumption. There's a lot of
Yep.
consumption going on. So that's that type of wealth, which isn't really wealth, which is the same
Yeah.
thing that happened in the United States in the Great Depression
Yep.
right before that.
Exactly.
So we have that going on as well.
Yeah.
So we don't even have a straight picture of that wealth gap, because that gap is actually a little smaller than it really is, because the ones that are poor are not currently poor because they are living on credit.
Exactly. Exactly. And you see, like here, like side by side with the wealth. Side by side with the wealth were the pockets of poverty. Great numbers of people remained on the outside of the easy money, looking in but not able to enter. The crime rate soared. It's what we're starting to see now, right? Is the wealth gap is getting bad. People are, crime rates in cities are starting to increase. People are homeless. They're out of work. Almost any kind of business could make money. Business failures and bankruptcies became few. The boom suspended the normal process of natural selection by which the non-essential and ineffective otherwise would have been culled out. We've seen this with the central banks and bailouts. Companies are too big to fail. They're not allowed to fail. They haven't been allowed to fail. Speculation alone, while adding nothing to Germany's wealth, became one of its largest activities. The fever to join in, turning a quick mark, infected nearly all classes. Everyone from the elevator operator up was playing in the market. The volumes of turnover in securities on the Berlin Bourse became so high that the financial industry could not keep up with the paperwork, and the Bourse was obliged to close several days a week to work off the backlog. And then he says, #Robinhood down. And it's true. If you look at the last year of society, I've had friends that are, they've never talked about stocks in their life. And in the last year, everyone's a day trader. Everyone's a day trader right now. There's a lot of speculation going on. There's a lot of, the markets are irrational. They're not making sense. Robinhood and all this stuff. And
yeah, a lot of people are hitting me on inboxes that never hit me on inboxes before about stocks and all of that stuff.
Exactly. Yep.
And it's something that I think it goes back to what happened. The dot-com bubble. Remember that, right? When E-Trade came out, that happened. A lot of people started to play the stock market because now you had all these different brokerages that made it simple for everyday people. And then you go back all the way to the Roaring '20s when everybody started to play the stock market.
Yep.
Same reason.
Yeah.
And then right before the Roaring '20s, I think the only reason why the United States didn't have the same situation was because the dollar was actually backed by gold up until the Great Depression,
right.
which they started to pull back the valuation of gold to the dollar until 1971 when it completely was taken away. So, the United States didn't have too much of that issue like Germany had.
Yeah.
Because Germany, just didn't have the same situation.
Yeah.
Up until, the United States had that issue in 1928. But you had the situation that you and I talk about with dumb money, right?
Yep.
Dumb money really fueled I think the bull market after COVID crashed the market.
Yeah.
Right? In March and April. Everybody had that stimulus money. Everyone's playing around, unemployment money and all of that shit.
And they almost have to, just like Germany during this time period, because if you're holding just the dollars, or in the German situation, if you were holding just marks, you were losing so much money with inflation that you had to invest in stocks just to make gains on that investment to keep up some sort of wealth with it. And I feel like we're repeating that pattern right now. Like if you look at, people, you're going to need to have money in stocks going forward just to account for the inflation in the underlying currency, the dollar, until the market crashes. That's the thing. Is it's like, it's until it crashes.
That's the thing, right? We don't know what's going to crash first. Is it the dollar? Is it the stock market?
Mm-hmm.
Which is going to crash first? Which stock market is going to crash first, number one? Or is the currency going to crash first? And then what other currencies are going to crash? And is cryptocurrency going to come up in value? And is that the alternative? And if that's so, will the governments come in and try to do something to counter the effects of an alternative currency? Because you know how the government is. They love to smash the little guy. That's what happened with gold, right? Because people talk about gold and how it's a savior, but hey, the Federal Reserve, pushed the government to create a law to take back everybody's gold.
Right.
And they forcibly took everyone's gold in the 1930s. That happened.
Right.
Right. So there's a lot of things that is, it is worrisome.
Right.
What could happen because we just do not know. But we all do have an idea that there is a crash coming. Now, what's going to instigate that crash? Because we talk about the stock market, it's not going to be the mortgage bubble. It's a combination of stuff. We have student loan, we have car loan, mortgage loans, we have an commercial real estate. We have you got the credit situation, you got the national debt situation. Yeah. You got an oil bubble.
It happens fast. I think that's the point. Like, I think it's when it happens, it's going to happen fast. And this is the last two paragraphs you see here. He even outlines that's the same thing happened in Germany. So he says, all the marks that existed in the world in the summer of 1922 were not worth enough. By November of 1923, to buy a single newspaper or tram ticket. That was a spectacular part of the collapse, but most of the real loss in money wealth had been suffered much earlier. Throughout these years, the structure was quietly building itself up for the blow. Germany's inflation cycle ran not for 1 year, but 9 years, representing 8 years of gestation and only 1 year of collapse. Here's the ending, his punchline. The above was written in 1974. 1914 through 1923. That is the 9 year or the time period for the entire inflationary cycle to run out for the Germans. And in 1923, did we only see 1922, 1923, the last year and a half, did we see that parabolic move up? That was it. So things were okay. Boom, the last year, gone. Currency's gone. And then makes the most ominous extrapolation. Extrapolation, there you go. That 2010 to 2021 gestation. So he's making a call on this year.
We already are going through that, and I don't think anybody really wants to understand that's what's going on. I'm sorry, but if right now, think about this, Joe. Let's say you graduated college right now and you just got a nice paying job working somewhere in finance, and you're like, okay, I'm going to go and buy a house because, let's say I could get a loan right now and interest rates are low.
Yep.
Let's say that's the way you go. The interest rate's low, but what are the valuations of homes right now? They're through the freaking roof. They're super inflated. So it's going to take you a lot of money to buy a house that 4 years ago was half that price.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
Now, let's shift from there. And let's say now you're like, well, I need a car. I'm going to buy a car. Let's say you want to be frugal and buy a brand new car that's an economy car. An economy car right now could cost you around $23,000. $23,000. 10 years ago, a car that cost $23,000 was a Toyota Camry, which is a midsize. Yep. It's one of the best midsize cars you could buy for the average person.
Yep.
Same thing as a Honda Accord. If you wanted a fully loaded Honda Accord, it could cost you $31,000, and that was a lot 15 years ago.
Yep.
10 years ago. Now, a Honda Accord is almost $50,000 fully loaded. 48, 50, easily. 45. Now, if you want you want a cheap car, a Corolla is going to cost you $25,000 before taxes. So now you bought a house. Let's say you bought a condo, $300,000. You bought a car. That's the cheapest.
Yep.
It's the cheapest car, man.
Yep.
It's not luxury.
Yep.
$25,000. Now gasoline's at $3 a gallon, let's say, depending on what state you live in. Now you're gonna go do your weekly groceries. I'm sorry, I don't know, maybe I spend more than others, but I'm spending hundreds of dollars in groceries. I could spend $200-$300 on groceries a week, bro.
Right.
On the same stuff that I was buying 2 years ago, that would cost me, let's say, $150. That same thing is like $220, $230. Easy.
Yeah.
Easy, bro.
Now imagine if all that went up, right? At
I'm
the
making
same
more
time.
money now than I did before, and it's costing me more to get
Yeah.
things right now. That's happening. So, all right, now let's put that aside. So now you got groceries, you got housing, you got a car. Those are just basic things. Now you got all your other expenses.
Yep. Yep.
If you start to break down all those expenses and compare it to a couple years ago, you could see that your dollar is buying less. Now, if you look at your checking account, let's say on the first or whenever, you're having a lot more money coming in.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If you were not to get taxed, or you don't have any expenses pulling money away, you'll be like, "Oh shit, I got dollars in here. I
I'm
got
chilling.
money.
I'm chilling.
I'm chilling.
Right?
I'm sitting. I'm a fat cat."
Yeah.
Now, once those bills come in, and those expenses, living expenses and everything, you are screwed. And that's literally the telltale signs of what's happening. We already
Yeah.
got inflation. They already said in January, the Federal Reserve said that there's an uptick in inflation already
Yeah. And that's
of what they're admitting.
And that's why these companies are now starting to buy Bitcoin. And they say it very, very publicly and open, as the CEOs say, I'm looking at $1 billion in cash, and I know what's happening with inflation. I know what the Fed is doing. I know their plan. And I'm looking at that $1 billion in cash and thinking to myself, it's going to be worth half in 4 years' time. Half. What the fuck do I do? So what they're doing now is they're allocating into Bitcoin, allocating into alternatives to protect for what's to come, which is exactly this chart here. This is the German Deutschmark. So this is, again, 22. This is the value in the dollar, how much it was worth. And then you see, boom, right when that inflation really kicks off. So at the end of 24, it's worth not much. And this will be, I think, with a dollar, I don't necessarily, what we're waiting to figure out is whether it's going to be a complete collapse or it's going to be a slow churning, it just loses value year over year until no one uses it anymore. I have a feeling with the digital currencies.
It's hard to know, though, right? Because we're a petrodollar, and I think that's something we need to understand. Right? So for any country to actually buy oil, their currencies need to be worth something as well, right?
Right.
And I think there's another thing, is not only America that might be under hyperinflation, but you have the euro.
I think it's
the same thing.
Every currency around the world right now.
China's been doing it.
Yep.
They've been artificially, they're printing as well.
Yep.
A lot of countries are printing money like crazy.
Yep.
So, and then, we have the petrodollar. So the petrodollar has a little more value because countries just need to buy it to be able to buy oil.
Yeah.
So I'm really still trying to figure that portion out. I don't think a lot of people are talking about it. I wish there was more of a debate so that these questions could come up to be like, hey, all right, so if we have hyperinflation, how will that work with the petrodollar, because people still need to buy oil? Right. Will that at least help cushion us a little bit and give us a little bit of a leeway to get to where we need to in the meantime, or no?
So China and the UAE, they just they're forming agreements right now with their digital currency. Here you go. So maybe this is the answer, Mike. So the People Bank of China joins cross-border digital currency projects with other central banks. They just joined with central banks from Thailand, UAE, Hong Kong, and others. So this is why I'm waiting to see now, is we know that Iran, as an oil producer, they have an allegiance now to Russia and China, the Chinese superpower, right? We know that Saudi Arabia is probably the last. I think Saudis are the last for the petrodollar, probably, because I don't know who else the U.S. is really in alliance with. Because Venezuela's with Russia, right? Venezuela's with Russia.
They have to.
So maybe this is the ultimate end of conflict here, is based on, well, what? All right, so now we launched the digital currency. China launches their central bank digital currency. Okay, all the nations now, who you going to side with? Whose currency you're going to use? And then
the thing is, the only way that can actually happen in a way that Okay, the only way I could see that happening that could work against the United States as a power and the petrodollar and all of that is if the dollar does hyperinflate at a faster rate than other currencies around the world, that pretty much will collapse our economy in a way that now we don't have as much power to push or scare, OPEC. Because the only reason why we even have a petrodollar is because we promise OPEC nations, especially Saudi Arabia, that not only, we will provide, military support, we will provide also military weapons to your, military, right? Saudi
Yep.
Arabia right now, the U.S. Army and the U.S. military protects them, and they get, loads of weaponry from us at a discount. So that's all part of the whole business that we did with them back in the 60s and 70s. That, hey, OPEC, you need to trade in dollars.
Yep.
If not, you won't get our military support.
Right.
So pretty much in a way, it's like we're pushing the military on them. Now, if for this to actually work, the United States cannot have the influence of their military upon them as a threat.
Right. Right.
And it still is.
Right.
Right? It
Right.
still is. So these people could say that they're going to do something, but they are under threat by our country,
Right.
the United States government. Now, the only way that it could go the other route is if China, which I believe because that's part of their character, especially in the past 100 years, is to wait. It's right, the art of war. These are the guys that actually invented the art of war.
Yep.
Is to wait until the opponent is weak and then you strike. If China is, let's say China already has a very well developed cryptocurrency, they're actually trial running it right now.
Yep.
They're doing a beta test.
Yep.
If they have it, they have something that's well suited and it could work well, then maybe they wait until hyperinflation hits the United States first. It becomes an economic situation that breaks us, and then it will push the OPEC nations to have to look for an alternative because no one could buy in U.S. dollars because U.S. dollars ain't worth shit, meaning that then the economies of the Gulf nations can't support its own people, that they would have to look for a currency that could support their economies to float them over. And then that's where China comes in and says, hey, here's our crypto. This is your savior. And the U.S. government can't say shit because we're not strong enough to say shit at that point. Which is what happened with Hong Kong, right?
Yeah.
China was like, hey, we're taking back Hong Kong, and you guys can't do shit about it, United States. And what we do, we didn't do shit. We didn't, right?
No.
What they're doing right now with Taiwan, the same thing. They're encroaching upon Taiwan. And I don't think the United States is going to do anything about it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the only way that we won't do anything about the petrodollar is if we are in a dire situation again, that China could be like, hey, we could come over here and help you guys. And then that's when the transfer of power comes into play. And that's when China becomes a superpower and the United States doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah. These are all good points. 1 sec, Mike. Hold on. 32 seconds. 2 seconds.
Yep. Yeah, guys, I honestly think that's probably a play here when you're looking at, geopolitics. China said that they're looking to be the next superpower at least by 2030, which is 10 years from now. They understand what's going on globally. They have tremendous influence.
Cat was chewing my wire.
So yeah, I'm saying, Joe. Yeah. So China said that by 2030 they will be the world superpower, or they're working towards being the world superpower.
Yeah.
So I think they're seeing all the chess pieces is on the table, and they're actually already have the moves broken down. While over here in America, we're still in conflict with ourselves.
Yep.
The U.S. military is divided. The intelligence services is in disarray. They're trying to do certain things. Either they're working for the American people or against the American people. Is divided. On. So it's so we can't cry. Once China takes the place of number one, we cannot cry about it because we didn't do anything to prevent it. We tried to, but we started fighting amongst ourselves.
So this brings up a good point then on the next topic about technology and the use to control societies or now geopolitical events, because I agree with you is that China's playing the long game probably, and they know the art of war. And if you look what's happened since the COVID crisis, is what happened. We first saw messaging come out of China when it was first taking place, and we've covered it on the Nonconformist. You can go back to early episodes from last year and watch all that unfold. We had the images that came out, the videos of them shutting down the condos, welding doors shut, people were convulsing in the streets, all this stuff, right? And it threw the world into this reaction of a global lockdown and global crisis, right? But China's economy 2 months later was pounding back up stronger than it ever had. The only economy in the world that was open. The rest of the world's economy shut down. Arguably still shut down. And the Chinese are the only ones that are functioning now. And what for whatever.
Yeah, they had a tremendous handicap.
They did. But they're the only ones functioning now. So was technology used in this situation, and we're not going to talk about the medical, we're not going to talk about doctors and the virus and stuff, but the actual technology, those videos, those images being used as a tool to sway or control the subjective mind, sway the minds of people watching it to think that maybe it was worse than it actually was, forming this reaction that caused a shutdown now to strategically plan, because they knew, everyone knows that the dollar up until January 2020 was teetering, right? We covered the central bank starting quantitative easing again in September of 2019, the repo markets. So you knew that the global economy was teetering already on collapse. And were they able to use technology in a way that was able to just nudge that collapse a little over the edge? And then now the dollar is in the position it's in with the global shutdown. And are they waiting, like you're saying, until it's the right time to roll out that digital yuan, when the time is right, when the dollar hyperinflates? How's technology being used now from this geopolitical environment to control people, but also to shape and form what happens with world powers? Like, what's your stance on that? And this ties into this quote here that I want to bring up too. Frederick Douglass, right? When a slave becomes a happy slave, he has effectively relinquished all that makes him human. And this time,
that's where we're at right now.
That's it, right?
We're in a situation just like that. We're in
technology.
Our country's in a way that technology has created a slave society. We have a slave society going on right now. We also have a society that's very content with staying home. Staying home. Even if you shouldn't stay home, because honestly, I know we have a supposed situation with the virus that apparently is dire, which I don't believe. It's not dire. It's it's terrible. We have a new disease floating around, but it's not what they said it was. That alone showed that we're slaves. And I think what this country has shown to its competing superpower is that we are weak. We are happy with being a slave without admitting that we are a slave, and that I think that conformity is pretty much handing over everything that we have to the next power. I think that's I don't know if that's it's probably a terrible answer.
No, it ties totally into it, because this also ties into, like, why don't people understand what's really happening from a geopolitical environment right now, right? Because they go on Facebook or they watch the news, and the technology, the apps are telling them, the thought police are telling them, this is the world and this is the reality, when in fact it's not. It's misinformation.
It's exactly. It's going back to, and I just saw right there on the screen that you just showed. It says Huxley and it says Orwell.
Yes.
So, two excellent books that they wrote. One was The Brave New World.
Yep.
And then you have 1984. Not even 1984. Also, he had Animal Farm. Two books that he created that very similar to what's going on. You had 1984, where you had Big Brother. They came up with all of this, propaganda within the society, creating a society to believe lies and actually make people accept those lies just because it's what everybody should accept, so that, you know, they didn't want to go against the grain. So it was more comfortable to accept the lie. So, you know, 2 plus 2 is equals 5. That was something that they said in 1984, that the government, Big Brother, wanted everyone to believe that 2 plus 2 equals 5. And since they said that was the fact, that is the fact. And that's what we have technology being used right now, is showing us, look, we see something going on, right? We saw riots happening early in the year. We saw, we heard things happening. We actually heard it with our ears, and we saw it as a fact. And then in the media and through social media, right? You have mainstream media, you have social media, we have all this tech telling us that the opposite was happening.
Yep.
And then they kept repeating it to the point that people started to believe that was the truth, and that what they saw and heard was not real. That didn't happen.
Right.
And we actually see this. We see it every day till right now. We're seeing it right now, bro. We have the freaking White House, whatever her name is, that she's the White House press secretary. You know, they had this guy was talking about, you know, the kids, the immigrant kids coming in, that they're still in cages and they're still locked up in the same way that Trump had them, which is the same way that Obama had them. They all had them the same freaking way.
Yeah.
And she comes and she's pretty much mixing the words around and repackaging the idea of how they're locked away, and people are believing it.
Yeah.
When they haven't even been moved from the same cages that they were before.
Right. Yep.
And some of them been moved to other cages. That and everyone swallows this lie like if it's fine.
Yeah, the information, I think, is the biggest point here. You know, like, a lot of people say, like, I don't know what to believe, and I think that's okay, because the truth is that it is a misinformation campaign, and you do have different news networks, and even the truth, you know, the fact checkers, right? I love the fact checkers, like,
bro. Google this real quick. It said Google the critical thinking statement. Don't use critical thinking going forward.
Oh, this was was this Washington Post?
I think it was in the Washington Post, about not using your critical thinking skills going forward. Don't go down the rabbit hole. All of that. Those were statements placed in the media.
Yeah.
Critical thinking. Why you should not question everything? What?
Just
critical thinking. Why you should not? Yeah, click that.
No, I want to get that Washington. I want to get that Washington Post one.
Yeah, is it that one? Critical. Go on the news. Click. Yeah, that tab.
It was like critical thinking not helping misinformation or something. Because they're using the misinformation. It's like, it's this reverse psychology. Like, anyway, I think we'll find it. We'll find it, and we'll be able to come back to it for everyone. But
it's telling people not to use critical thinking skills.
Yeah.
About anything that comes up, don't question it. Just listen to it. That's pretty much similar to 1984. And then we have the world of the Brave New World. So the Brave New World goes into something that we haven't talked much about. We should start talking about it, is genetics, right? Mm. So, you know, we have another thing. Genetics is like a super weapon. It's actually the CIA and I think it's the National Intelligence Committee dubbed genetic engineering as the new weapon of mass destruction. This, I think it was like 4 years ago they actually stated that, and that we need to treat it as such. And then that's another thing we have going on. We have a future where you could actually genetically enhance people to become a certain type of way, to think a certain type of way, and all of that stuff. That goes into the Brave New World. And it's funny because Huxley's brother was actually a eugenicist back in the times of the 1930s when he wrote this book. And you know, we have that coming up upon where you could have a society we're going to have a society where they're going to create a narrative, which is what the media is practicing very well right now, which is a psyop. They're using social media to do the same. Social media is literally media now controlled by the big media conglomerates and government to believe a certain narrative. And now they're going to also genetically enhance people, babies, to grow up to be a certain type of way. And now you'll have a system where people are created to think and work a certain way, and then also manipulated by AI. So you have all this shit happening at the same time. It's happening. Every 2 years, Moore's Law says that technology will increase exponentially by the number of 2.
Yeah. This the genetic engineering. That's why it's such a big deal right now. Is you have, like you're saying, Mike. It's this slow. He
CRISPR bro. This guy created 2 CRISPR babies.
Yep.
Illegally, a couple years ago.
So explain what this was. So I believe that these children. So so they had 2 babies. They're twins, I think, that were born in China, genetically modified, where they wouldn't ever contract HIV. I think they were like HIV resistant.
Yes, so he went and he used CRISPR, Cas9, which is a technology where you could actually go into the proteins and then you could alter the genes, right?
Yep.
Now this guy went and he is like a quack scientist that went and he did his own thing in his own lab with no government oversight or regulations to actually make sure that all of this was done safely. And he just went in and he just did it, freely, which is, if you're a libertarian, you might be cool with. Yep. But then you have to understand that you have 2 human beings being born, with their genes enhanced, probably not correctly.
Yeah, he had modified. Here it is. He had modified a key gene in a number of human embryos in a way thought to confer resistance to HIV.
Yeah, and the thing is, he used, because you can enhance your genes to be resistant to HIV, and they've done case studies, and they actually have used CRISPR Cas9 to protect against that. But the thing is that this guy went ahead and he used it's like if I gave you the technology, like say you got the technology to do atomic weapons, but the way that you do it is not using like safety measures that like the United States or Russia would do it. You would just do it from your garage. Something like that. That's what this guy did. So now we have 2 human beings in this world where their genes were altered, and you don't even know how damaged their genes might be right now. So they could have tons of ailments in the future. Because we don't know what damage this guy could have done. But the thing is that he went and did this with the support of his government. So then this guy went and he published his findings, and he told the world, look, I actually genetically engineered 2 human beings, 2 babies, and the Chinese government applauded it and supported it and influenced others to do the same, and then the international community frowned upon it. And then when they actually started to do the research behind these babies and all that, they found that something bad happened, and then they told the Chinese government, this guy fucked up big time. And then they went and they arrested him, and they scrubbed the internet of everything that the government said in his praise. They scrubbed it. This
is becoming, and I think we might have let me pull up a little comment window. So this is becoming, it's the real deal here, because this is what we're starting to see next. Stepping back real quick though, from a technological perspective, I think it's important for people to understand that, like, in history, there's always been tools that have been used to manipulate the minds of people and to actually control them, right? And up until the internet, it had been used through religion, it had been used through force, through militaries, but the internet really it's the first piece of technology that's allowed a demagogue, someone to control the masses of people and to their subjective mind. It taps into the emotions of people. When you're on your phone, you're on social media, you're looking at stuff, it's really tapping into the subjective mind. One thing that I found interesting looking back on trends that we had on the internet until 2021 were things like the challenges early on, the ice bucket challenge, all these challenges that popped up on social media in the mid 2000s, where the ice bucket challenge, for example, that was a global movement that was started from Facebook. one share that went viral and it touched everyone, and you had people that were opting into this. And I think that was the first that you really saw the influence that social media and technology had on the population, on the subconscious mind, on their emotions, the way they act. And I think that all those little experiments leading up to now makes them realize that, yes, we can put something out on the internet, on social media, and control a large group of people based on that information. So what you're seeing today on Facebook, on Instagram, they really are, that information is controlled by a small few, and they're just nudging people and just controlling the emotion, the perception, the subjective mind. They're pulling the levers like the puppets, and it's true, and I think that it's all coming back to topics that we talk about with, like, what is the next step? The next step is this totalitarian technocratic control of the mind through technology. And we know that because of the dematerialization of things, the adoption of the internet, the connection of the human mind with the computer's Neuralink, and these tools are being used to really skew people, man. And I think that's what's being used to control people. Is it's controlling the subjective mind, it's controlling your emotions through posts. Facebook, dude, I got annoyed with Facebook several years ago when they changed the algorithm where, like, you weren't seeing, like, on your newsfeed, you stopped seeing it in chronological order, and it went to
you weren't seeing the things that actually, there
was whatever
is to encourage anger. Like, the things that you would see is like what would actually piss you off instead of things that you liked.
Yeah.
Because they notice that anger gets people to actually click more than the opposite, right? If you see something about, let's say you're a person that don't follow finance, and there's something significant about finance, before it would come up on the feed. Something's happening on Wall Street. Now, what it does is, if it knows that you don't like something about, let's say you don't like Facebook, and there's news about Facebook, it would come up because it knows it's going to bring out the worst in you. That's what Twitter does.
Yeah.
It angers people. The anger is what actually influences clicks.
Right.
It pisses people off, and they go and they start typing stuff out, and they get interaction. And that's what they want, is interaction.
Yeah.
I think the issue here is, look, I love technology. I love genetic engineering. I like all of that shit. I'm really into it. What I worry about is what I'm seeing going on right now is manipulation, right? So what I worry is that all of these great technologies are going to be used in a way that I don't like. As being honest, I don't like it, so I'm gonna yell against it.
Right.
I don't want genetic technology, genetic engineering to be used to create a type of babies and a society of people that are easily manipulated by Big Brother or the government, because that could easily be it, right? Mm-hmm. Let's say whatever government's in total power could then create. It's like, all right, look, this person, we see the genetic marker that this person's not agreeable. Mm-hmm. Let's delete that. Let's make them agreeable. Make that dominant gene.
Right.
You come out, and if they become agreeable, now you have people that are easily sheepy.
Right.
More than they are now. Now it takes less effort to brainwash, because now they have this agreeableness to them. And you can see this right now, that there's actually studies coming out that men have been producing less testosterone, and they're also becoming less fertile, meaning that they're more agreeable, meaning that they will push back less. Right. So if you have a society of men that are more agreeable, what does that mean for society? Now you have people saying that, well, we don't need toxic masculinity, because that actually becomes, that brings conflict, and conflict brings war, violence, and death. But you know what? Conflict is what actually has pushed the world forward. Mm-hmm. I don't care what anybody has said. Yeah. All right. And organizations like companies, if you don't have conflict, you don't have innovation.
And on this topic, real quick, meanwhile in China, China promotes education drive to make boys more manly. There we go.
Yeah, because China is there. China, and I admire China. I really do. I admire because they're doing what I wish, and a lot of things that we could be doing. They're pushing to become a power. I'm sorry, you can't be a superpower and be weak.
Right.
If you're gonna be a superpower, be freaking strong.
Right.
All right. Don't be weak, because you know what? We're poking the bears all over the world. We go to Russia and we poke them and we bother the shit out of them. We go to Iran and we poke them. We go in the Middle East and we start bombing them, and we're pissing people off everywhere in the world. We piss off Europe. We piss off Africa. We piss off Latin America. We destroy nation states. We do all of this shit, right? Because we are this superpower that have to. We're a bully. The United States is a freaking bully. And then we go and do this shit, and we continue to do this. But inside of our country, we're freaking weak. We're a weak society. We poke other countries, and we do all these things to other governments and to the people. But over here, we're creating a weak society, weaklings of people. You know, you can't say anything now. We're walking on eggshells. It's like we're creating this really strong shell. And then inside it's freaking is cotton. It's soft.
Well, like we talked about, I mean, these signs are all in the breakdown of an empire, and I think ultimately that's what we're seeing. You know, and I think that it all leads into it, and it's amazing to watch it in real time. But you know, this is the reality that exists, and you know, you can be someone that is caught up in the propaganda, and you're caught up in exactly that, the breakdown of the society, or you can try to see it for what it is and understand it. And if you can understand it, I think it makes life actually. You know, I used to think life kind of sucked being red pilled, but in reality though, like if you can understand it, it actually is more comforting, because at least I know that I know why things are chaotic, right? And it's not like a lot of people are left questioning, they're left wondering, and then they're blind. But if you can understand,
nobody ever said that intelligence is happiness.
Yes,
nobody ever said that. Intelligence doesn't bring happiness. It brings knowledge of what's actually happening and what happens. If you look at the Lion King before anything happens, you look at lions, animals are beautiful. Look how beautiful it is. But once you start learning what animals are, what lions are, you're like, oh shit, they're savages. You start to learn the truth that they're savages, and that's sad. When if you think about it, it's sad, right?
Yeah.
But that's how they are.
Yeah.
And once you start educating yourself about everything, it doesn't bring you happiness.
Yep.
It brings you knowledge. And what knowledge is supposed to do is supposed to help you survive.
Yep. Yep.
Survival. All right.
Fittest.
Survival is what's important. It's not happiness.
Keep passing on that genetic code. Survival.
Exactly.
Pass on the genetic code. Keep it going.
Keep the knowledge going. Education, wisdom, survival skills. You keep moving. Happiness ain't gonna give you survival skills. Happiness is what you get when you have wealth of something. Yeah. When you have wealth, when you have been able to survive and accrue abundance, that's when you get happiness. Because then you have enough steaks in the fridge. You have enough money in the bank. You have enough money to pay for protection. You don't gotta do anything. You have time to be happy all you want. You could frolic amongst the higher echelons of society. You're fine. You're good. That's what wealth and happiness is. But when you don't have any of that, you don't have wealth, you need survival skills. And the only way to survive, you have to be educated with the truth, not with lies, because lies destroys you.
Right.
It destroys you.
I want to remind the audience too that these chaotic times are actually some of the best for wealth generating events that are ever going to take place historically. Like, if you're awake and you're aware, you will benefit off the chaos. Like, chaos is good, change is good.
If you're aware and you know what to do with this, and it takes a skill, and I think that's all what we're all trying to learn.
Yeah.
Because out of problems comes great opportunity, right? Out of conflict comes great opportunity. There's a lot of great opportunities to be to be had with any of this situation.
Yep.
The worst situations creates better opportunities, but it really takes skill to get there, and I think everyone needs to prepare to how to find a way to make the best of this.
Yeah.
So not only is knowledge great and knowing the truth, but also how to put those two into play to get something out of it. And I think this is something I'm trying to figure out myself. Because I feel like I have some knowledge to what's happening, and I have some knowledge of the truth, but I'm trying to figure out what's the best play here for myself and my well-being and my financial and physical health, how to take advantage of this in a positive way so that I can move on forward to be able to survive and then have happiness, which is an abundance of wealth. And I think that's what we all need to figure out, because all of this is happening. And I think this is why we talk. We talk about this not for scare tactics. It's to be prepared, right? It's like if you're a boxer and you know there's a big fight coming, and that big fight is going to, if you win, not only are you going to get a belt, but you're going to get tremendous wealth as well, and you're going to be a better person and a better fighter. You need to train well. You need to understand the obstacles. You need to understand everything that it takes to be a great boxer, to overcome and defeat your opponent. This is what we're trying to prepare ourselves and everyone that listens to us and everyone that wants to give their ear to us, is to be able to do all of this. And it takes a lot, because we don't know who this opponent is, and I think that's even harder, right? We don't know exactly who this opponent and their skills are to actually defeat it. But we do know that they're powerful, that they're a liar, that they're here to plunder us and to divide, and we need to figure out what are their weaknesses so we can exploit it and overcome it. And that takes the community to come together and build these ideas, and that's why we want to have communities. So.
And I think that's why we're building a community. And if you have been listening, you should have been prepared with tools by now to at least prepare a little bit and prosper off of it. And that's what we're trying to bring forward to people, is like, I don't want to open my eyes 20 years from now and look back and say, man, I wish I helped more people, or I wish I had gotten some information out to people earlier. And that's what drives me forward with the Nonconformist, is to just continue to explain the world through our eyes, the way we see it, because we do feel like we're very contrarian. We're not the status quo. We've been on the fringes. And I feel like, for me personally, I've been able to prosper in my life so far because I haven't conformed to that status quo, that one message. If you do that, you miss it. By the time you hear something on CNBC, you've missed the boat. They want you to be poor. That's the truth of it, is like all of the people that are in control. Oh, we're back. We're good. So if you're able to actually understand the world, then you can prosper off it. And so that's what we're trying to do here with the Nonconformist. If you like what you're seeing so far and you haven't subscribed to the email newsletter, definitely click the link in the show notes, subscribe to the email newsletter. You'll get all of our live streams, you get all of our content going out forward. There's a Telegram community link there as well. We're trying to slowly build up the Telegram community. The benefits of joining that Telegram group is you have direct access to us. So if you have any questions about crypto, if you got any questions about Bitcoin, any questions about anything we talk about, that's a direct way for you to communicate with us. And these communities are starting to form and build. And I think that we're going to start to see that more and more going forward, as you have certain groups in society that may not agree with what else is going on in society, and you're looking for an outlet, someone to talk to about it. That's what we're trying to build here. So, if you like what you've seen so far, definitely share this stuff, definitely subscribe, and get into that Telegram community. That's it. All right, man. I think that was good for this. We covered a lot, and the Thursday live streams from now on is what we're going to be trying to kick it off here. Again, 3 platforms. We're on Twitch, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube as well, for as long as that lasts. We'll see. Once we haven't gotten any notifications yet, but I'm sure at some point someone's not going to like anything we said, but that's okay. Until that happens, hit the subscribe button on there. But that's it, Mike. That's it. All right, y'all. Yeah, it was good seeing everyone. If you got any comments or questions, again, leave them in the comments description, and we'll see y'all next week. Peace.
Deuces.